Life can be unpredictable and events occur many times out of personal control, sometimes demanding immediate attention of experts to deal with. The case of Maiduguri floods readily comes to mind. You sleep and wake up without heavy rainfall and your house is flooded. It is the same for those who retire to bed safely only to be disturbed by unwanted visitors, if you know what I mean. And as much as we don't pray for it, a deteriorating health condition is undesirable and can create unwanted anxiety that only medical experts can allay. So many cases like these have become a part of our lives and we must always be prepared. But we all know that the best way to handle all forms of emergencies is through a coordinated measure, often deployed by either states or the federal government. It is great to know you are tuned in to Dateline 360 today, and we will be looking at emergency response in Nigeria. How well is it working and where there is need for improvement? I am Omotola Mojola and I'll be back with you in a bit. The management of disasters across the globe requires high-level collaboration for planning, mitigation, or response. Depending on the magnitude, it often requires the deployment of heavy-duty equipment for effective evacuation, rescue, and recovery. Nigeria is among many countries in Africa battling to live above board in mitigation strategies. In this report, correspondent Ilyasu Yakubu examines Nigeria's response to emergencies.
The management of disasters in Nigeria, ranging from floods, windstorm, fire, building collapse, as well as rainstorms, has been a Herculean task confronting disaster managers in the country. This is largely due to overwhelming nature of such disasters. Before the 2012 flood disaster that ravaged most parts of the country, disaster management in Nigeria substantially focused on provision of palliatives rather than evolving mitigation strategies to minimize casualty figures and destruction of property. The lessons learned during the 2012 flood disaster prompted the renewed strategies in managing the trend. The introduction of disaster risk reduction mechanisms by the United Nations General Assembly in 2015 to focus more on disaster risk reduction and prevention gave rise to this new approach to disaster management.
The Assembly decides to adopt draft resolution A/77/L70. It is so decided.
In view of these, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, took the lead alongside other intervening agencies to ensure adoption of this new mitigation approach. Since then, NEMA has been convening Disaster Response Coordination Forum to brainstorm on possible ways of reducing casualty rates year in, year on. NEMA is also partnering with some development partners who conduct strategic trainings and retraining on disaster management. These trainings have obviously added value to the strategic efforts of managing disasters in the country.
In line with NEMA's mandate of coordinating emergency preparedness, mitigation and response activities across the country, the agency has deemed it fit to convene this meeting once again to review the current flood situation since the commencement of the rainy season and to address public health concerns regarding the current cholera outbreak in some parts of the country.
Though the synergy with intervening agencies like the military, fire service, the police, Federal Road Safety Corps, Civil Defense, Ministry of Health, Environment, Water Resources, Information and Development partners may seem robust. However, the challenge has been funding. Disaster is local, owing to the fact that it must occur in a specific place, village, local government, and state. The National Emergency Management Agency has made it a point of duty that every state constitute local emergency organizing committees as first responders and act immediately in the event of any form of disaster. This is in addition to advocacy aimed at educating the general public on the dangers of non-adherence to safety measures. Although the National Emergency Management Agency (NEMA) has been making efforts in disaster mitigation, other challenges still abound. Governor Babagana Umara Zulum and the Chairman Senate Committee on Special Duties, Kaka Shehu, speak.
It's overwhelming, and therefore I'm also pleading on behalf of the National Emergency Management Agency to the federal government in order to provide additional support for them so that they can carry out their functions diligently.
We have experienced perennial flooding in almost all the states of the Federation. So I want to use this medium on behalf of the Senate Committee on Special Duties to appeal to Mr. President to fund NEMA so that NEMA would be alive to its responsibilities.
Experts say unless the federal government initiates better ways of mitigating disasters through procurement of world-class equipment and construction of dams in states neighboring the East African countries which release water from their dams whenever it overflows its banks. For Dateline 360, Ilyasu Yakubu.
Thanks, Ilyasu, for your perspectives to the discourse. Now let's zero in on some sectors where emergency response can be necessary. Amidst rising cases of public health emergencies such as the mpox and other re-emerging diseases like cholera and Lassa fever, nationwide preparedness is imperative. This, health correspondent Oluseye Adeagbo asserts, have been strengthened to break the chain of transmission even at the country's point of entries. While Nigeria's emergency response protocols might have made some progress, he reports that there are still several challenges that affect their overall effectiveness in addressing health crisis.
Nigeria has always had its share of health crises, from the spike of diphtheria cases to outbreaks of Lassa fever, cholera, and more recently the return of mpox, which has been declared a public health emergency. It's enough to keep our health experts constantly on their toes. Emergency response to these diseases outbreak in Nigeria has often been widely praised due to swift action, public health coordination, international support, and building on lessons learned, but still with gaps in healthcare infrastructure like inadequate testing, insufficient protective equipment for health workers, and challenges in contact tracing. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, a national public health institute with the mandate to lead the prevention, preparedness, detection and response to infectious disease outbreaks and public health emergencies, is armed with robust surveillance and early warning systems to drive a proactive public health system that safeguards the health of all citizens.
Nigeria has always intensified surveillance. I've told you that since 2017 we have continuously reported confirmed cases. Luckily, we've been in touch with very many African countries before now, and so it will be important for us to, enhance surveillance. We're doing that also with the Port Health Service to be able to screen persons on our land borders.
From coordination, we have been able to bring up partners and stakeholders together using one net approach. And again, we have been optimizing our laboratories to ensure that we pick all cases and then we test them. Of course, we have been providing resources to the state in terms of sampling materials and then others commodity to support response.
The present efforts of the nation's health leadership through the NCDC platform is working to expand molecular laboratories across the country to help the country stay ahead of any potential disease outbreak, especially those that cross borders.
We have laboratories all over the country, but each of them, again, they don't have the same capabilities to do. We have many cases that do PCR detection. But what we are trying to do now is increase the number of laboratories all over the country to build their capabilities to be able to test so that people or samples do not move across for too long before they can be tested.
Also, efforts to revamp Nigeria's emergency services are on the way. The major factor of maternal mortality in Nigeria is linked to delay in receiving quality health care. National Emergency Medical Services and Ambulance System (NEMSAS) has been working to address transportation barriers to health centers through the initiative of Rural Ambulance and Transportation Services. To strengthen the program, the federal government recently inaugurated a National Emergency Medical Treatment Committee and Rural Emergency Services and Maternal Transport, with members meeting to address bottlenecks in incident response.
There is lack of awareness in our communities about the presence of this service, even about the existence of an emergency toll-free number that anybody can call, 112, and get a response quickly. Also, there are gaps we have not yet reached all of the states in the country. We are in 16 states, and we are hoping to expand this exponentially.
Engage these challenges and see that we build a very strong and resilient national emergency medical treatment system through the NIMSAS to see that every life is saved. And in this process, we are going to strengthen our referral systems as very well.
The bottom line for us here is that these new initiatives would help to stem the tide of Nigerians who die because of late health intervention.
More heartwarming is the optimism from health experts that challenges hindering their effectiveness and adaptability are surmountable. In Abuja, Olusheye Adiagbo.
The police is often the first port of call for security emergencies in civil societies. As we all know, response can only be effective when it is on time and well coordinated. Francis Form in our next report looks at the situation in Nigeria and the various mechanisms being adopted to promote efficiency in security emergency response.
Police is your friend. See something, say something are among catchphrases security agencies use to encourage citizens about why there is need for trust between the public and the police force.
The emphasis is that we are there to protect lives and properties of the citizen. We work for the citizen, and that's why we must be very careful that our duty is to ensure the safety of the people and their properties.
How is that working, particularly in emergency situation?
Well, from my experience and from what is on ground, no police officer would refuse to respond to distress call. But sometimes there are gaps. The gaps are that areas that have not been known, that is prone to crime, suddenly become a place where incidences are happening. And when the calls are met, it depends on the availability of mobility. Sometimes the policemen have taken most of the vehicles, like the patrol vehicles, to some other places. And so you now have to call them from a distance. But as it is, the response for the Nigerian police sometimes is slow because you have to wait for those equipment like the logistics. Even when the men are there, the men need some, logistic to go.
To ensure effective response in emergency situations, the Nigeria Police Force says it has taken major steps to bolster its capacity to respond swiftly to emergency situations. The force asserts that it has implemented new communication technology through the use of electronic apps and centralized communication hub linked to the Nigeria Police Force National Command and Control Center.
In case of any incident, like robbery, rape, even accidents, You can easily swipe on the app. In 5 seconds of swiping, it will get to command and control center of the police, including headquarters. Most of the state command has the app running already.
Get familiar with the police in your locality. Get familiar with your DPO and all the patrolmen. They are going to be useful to you. Make use of these lines to help. These are the things we are bound to experience. Distress calls, response to distress calls, very, very critical. And this we will continue to do. But we need more advocacy. We need more public enlightenment.
The ability of the police force to foster strategic partnership with other emergency services, such as the Federal Road Safety Corps and Federal Fire Services, enhances coordination in crisis situations. The deployment of Rapid Response Unit, Force spokesperson says, is bringing results in faster police action during emergencies. Additionally, the force says its rapid response vehicles are equipped with state-of-the-art tracking systems and are strategically stationed in high-risk areas to ensure swift deployment. Toll claims can only be confirmed by those who have directly benefited from the deployments. Here are the views of some citizens.
I've had several courses of calling for an emergency with police, and the response has been a very poor response. We all are in Nigeria here. When you look at the Nigerian police sectors, you know that we don't have enough personnel in Nigerian police.
If we give them what they need, like most cases when you call them, it's either their vehicle is faulty or there's no fuel. You understand? If you go have an issue in the police station, I'll go there. They will ask you, you have to buy the paper in which you write.
If truly the police is our friend, they should act accordingly. If there's an emergency, if there is a call, like we hear in other countries, yes, in other development, they say, is it 911? You call 911 and before you say Jack Robinson, and there is an intervention. But here, they will complain of, we don't have fuel, we don't have a vehicle. If they have vehicle, where's the driver? All manner of. And before you know it, we have heard of cases of armed robbery. You call and then before they could respond, the deed is done.
That is one of their responsibilities. They should respond immediately, as soon as possible, because that is when they are needed. Are you getting me? Not when the evil has been done.
With these advancements, the Nigeria Police Force assures that it is setting a new standard for emergency response. It promises a safer environment for all. For Dateline 360, Frank's form.
A common form of emergency is road accidents, and this is like a common sight on Nigerian highways, coming from reckless driving to bad roads, infrastructure, among other causes. The damage can be sore both to the eyes and the mind. While many lives could be saved with prompt interventions, a number of victims died due to poor handling. Oyeyemi Ajayi in our next report looks at emergency response from the perspective of road safety, examining some of the challenges to prompt response to road accidents.
Road accidents are not strange things on Nigerian highways. The severity of coming in different degrees. While bad roads, night driving and overspeeding have been noted among the culpables, unattended disabilities such as mental and visual health are also noted as responsible. The prevalence is high and the fatalities accompanying road accidents occasionally make news headlines. Cases of survivors, however, are increasing due to quick response from responders, the Federal Road Safety Corps, often leading as part of its statutory responsibility of sanitizing the highways. According to the Federal Road Safety Corps statistics, it was revealed that 15.5% reduction of deaths were recorded during the first quarter of 2023. This is due to the quick response of emergency of the Corps and officers, and this has actually brought an increase to road crash survivors. As the narrative changes positively, the numbers of the rescued is increasing and replacing fatalities.
One major problem I want to pick on is a lack of prompt information from members of the public. The narratives we have seen in the recent time, or even in the past, is a situation where virtually either told those that ought to be sympathizers and become cameramen.
Officers the Federal Road Safety Corps says are on their toes, even in the rural areas, owing to the establishment of units and posts in all 774 local government areas.
That remote area that you think is remote, we have artisans there. And that artisan you see by the roadside that is an organizer, is selling something by the roadside, has been trained by Federal Road Safety Corps. One, trained on how to apply, just little first aid, give first aid attention to victims. And secondly, they were also empowered to have some answers, that's minor phone that could be used to call the free toll center. That's a call 122. So that in case there's any crash, before FRC get to the scene, an attention is already being given out to the victims. And while that one is being done, information is also passed to Federal Road Safety Corps, either the closest command or the call center.
The need for Nigeria to develop a more efficient synergy between and amongst emergency responders, hospitals and victims have been advocated to create a seamless communication system, build efficiency and reduce delays to emergency response.
We had this series of collaboration with the management of various hospitals and with the support of federal government or governments, in short, that when victims are brought to hospitals, they should be attended to first. And we also have the support of some NGOs who naturally supports in paying the first line of treatment for crash victims before they were able to communicate members of their family. So far, I think in line with the United Nations 5 pillars, that's number 5, which is the post-crash response time as care, is really working out.
Emergency response begins with being cautious drivers and road users. The imperative for coordination among emergency response officers is also noted as necessary to ensure a swift process. Accident eyewitnesses are also urged to make themselves useful and join the rescue team rather than obstruct responders from doing their jobs. Oyeyemi Ajayi, reporting for Dateline 360.
And as Nigeria continues to grapple with various forms of disaster, what are the measures in place for emergency responders to access prompt and effective response to emergencies? Musa Toliat in our next piece tells the Lagos story.
Lagos State, like every other state, is not immune to various forms of disasters such as building collapse, flooding, road crashes, and fire incidents. Majority of these incidents are man-made, therefore preventable. Erecting 5 or more story building on a waterlogged land, building with substandard materials, building on waterways, blocking of drainages, excessive speed, overloading, and driving with worn-out tires are human factors that lead to disasters. However, in the event of catastrophe, residents are encouraged to call emergency toll-free lines 767 and 112.
When there was a fire incident on the road here, I was one of those people that called and they responded.
When we have issues on the road, they are always there quickly to ensure that things are back to normality.
Do you have an emergency, please?
This is where they actually receive your emergency calls. That's talking about 767 and 112. And so when they receive the calls here, they escalate it to the control room where emergency responders will be activated.
We run a 24/7 project, but we run shifts. It's a 3-shift pattern, morning, afternoon, and night.
To mitigate the impact of disasters across the metropolis, the Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, activates effective coordination among stakeholders, which include the Lagos State Fire and Safety Rescue, Federal Road Safety Corps, Lagos State Ambulance Service, the Police Command, and State Environmental Health Monitoring Unit.
The key thing in here is that we share information with all the key stakeholders, we plan together, we build capacity together, we have equipment, and we have biceps to respond to any form of emergency in Lagos.
So we have desk for all of the stakeholders. So once they receive the incident escalated from the call center, they would dispatch the relevant agency that have the resources, both men and equipment, to handle the search and rescue operations.
Apart from providing heavy-duty equipment for emergency response, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu often give moral support during search and rescue operations.
Let's continue to encourage ourselves. Let's continue to believe as if we are right there. Do everything to bring out the life there.
Rehabilitation of victims is part of emergency management and mitigation policy in the state.
We are able to build relief center in all the 3 central districts. We have one at Igodo that when we can have about close to 5,000 IDPs. We have one at Agbowa, and the one at Agbowa can take close to 3,000 IDPs. Now, the state now donated another relief center at Agbowa, which we call it Agbowa Phase 2. And that one can accommodate close to 10,000 IDPs.
There is, however, need for increased level of public awareness regarding emergency protocols, especially administering first aid measures before the arrival of emergency responders.
Safety is the responsibility of everyone. But with the level of emergency response mechanism put in place by the state government, residents will need to put their emotions in check and allow professionals carry out emergency response operations and give right of way when necessary. For Dateline 360, I am Musa Toliat.
And that's Dateline 360 for today. I am Omotala Omojola. From all of us here at the NTA, we say thank you for your time. May God bless Nigeria.